everybody. I'm Veronica.
And I'm Studio Steve.
And we are the Pod Sound School.
And today we're talking all about how to avoid the podcasting blues. We all start full steam. We all start full steam. So
and
excited
down
about our
the
podcast.
Stream.
Why don't you take it from here, Veronica?
We all start full steam. So excited about our podcast. Everything is so new. We're getting attention from our friends, co-workers, and family. We're getting a lot of validation. Even a few strangers have discovered us. We're learning new things and gaining confidence. But as the weeks and months pass, we start realizing that podcasting requires a ton of work and time commitment. We also realize it's difficult to grow an audience and become discoverable on the podcast players. Shoot. We might encounter our first negative reviews. Oh no. Our friends and family who were at first very involved might start to lose interest or stop giving us the constant validation that we've become so addicted to.
And that we crave.
And that we craved. And if we're not careful and continue to take proactive steps, our once beloved podcast can start to become a burden.
Oh, man. So today, in the spirit of the resolution season, we're going to talk about 3 things to be wary of and to avoid so that you don't slip into those podcasting blues. Because your podcast deserves it, and you deserve it. So those 3 things that we're going to talk about are discouragement, not seeing results fast enough, and also time and money and the return on your time and money. These are big, probably the biggest things that start to get us discouraged and start to give us those podcasting blues.
Yes. And before we dive into the episode, we want to let you know that nobody has bought us coffee. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
We were having a competition to see who the favorite host is, and turns out that it's neither of us because we haven't gotten any coffee.
Yes.
But since Christmas is coming, we thought that you might want to show us some holiday cheer and buy us a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
There's a link in this episode description and a buy us coffee button on our website. So if you feel that warm and fuzzy, you know, if you're like about to go on your Christmas shopping and you're like, oh, these people from the Pod Sound School, they're kind of nice. They're cool people. And just, you know, click on the link and buy us coffee. And even better than a cup of coffee would be to show your support on Patreon. We help our community of podcasters with tons of free content. The majority of the work that we do it for free. So if you feel it in your heart to help the Pod Sound School grow so that we can help more people to realize their dreams, become a patron. The link is in the episode, and also you can find it at www.podsoundschool.com/support us.
Yes, that would be amazing.
Okay.
Let's avoid those podcast blues.
Yes.
And let's talk about the 3 main things that can happen. And the first one is discouragement. And with discouragement, this has a few different subcategories that we're talking about too. And that is negative reviews, the discouragement that we can get from family and friends. And then also maybe that you and or your co-host are starting to get bored with the topic or the format of your show. So why don't we start with negative reviews? When it comes to negative reviews, one of my favorite things that we've read is from Marie Forleo's book, which is, what's the name of her book? I forget.
Everything is figureoutable.
Everything is figureoutable, yeah. So in that, she's talking about how people who leave negative reviews are probably not very high performing. And if they were very productive people whose opinion you should value, then they wouldn't have time to leave all these negative reviews, you know? And so she recommends asking yourself, do they have a body of work that I respect? And if they do, then maybe you really do want to give their negative review some thought.
Yeah, you want to go deeper into that review if it's somebody that you admire and that you admire the work that they do.
Yeah, this can be really hard. I mean, and if you're not careful, I know with myself, this can take you down for a while. And so it's a really difficult one. It can hurt. It can get you in the feels. But the one thing that's really cool about that Veronica brought up with this can give you an opportunity for personal growth because it sort of fires up your insecurities, and all of a sudden you have to look deep into yourself and deep back into your past about why these negative reviews are affecting you so much. And so it's actually a cool opportunity for that. And then also another thing you can do with negative reviews a lot of times, if the review is on a platform that you can respond back to, like on Twitter or social media. I know on the podcast directories, they're just stuck there and you can't do anything about them, is you can actually leave a really positive and thoughtful response back to the negative reviewer. And a lot of times you can turn your haters into some of your biggest fans. So the other thing that we would recommend here too is just to stay away from your phone.
Yes. Stay away from your phone, from your computer while you're dealing with all those emotions, because, we're humans, and those comments and those words are going to linger in our heads for a while. So, just don't keep them to yourself. Try to share those with somebody that you trust. That person will help you to gain perspective.
Yeah.
And definitely don't try to hunt those people and harass them on social media.
Yeah, no. Are you looking at me?
Don't try to find who their wives are.
I don't know if it's just this snowman sweater, but is my head abnormally large? It's like a big white ball,
You're like...
I'm Frosty.
You're Frosty.
I'm Frosty the Snowman. Happy birthday. Yeah, so with those negative reviews, just don't dwell on them for too long. You could take them with a grain of salt if there is a piece in there. A lot of times I like to say turn on the sweetheart message or turn on the subtitles. A lot of the times behind the mean things that people are saying is actual valuable information that they're trying to convey. That's something
it's usually like people who are hurting themselves, and that's why they're out to hurt other people. And they're not aware of, in the moment, of the repercussions that those nasty words can have on people and their work and their confidence.
Yeah. And also a lot of times too, I think it can be that you are doing something they wish they could be doing, and a lot of times it's because they're insecure too. And they're, like Veronica said, they're hurting. So it's really not worth too much of your time here. And it's definitely do not allow it to talk you out of continuing on with your podcast.
Yeah. And if that doesn't work, hey, negative attention, it's still attention.
Yes. What do they say?
It means that person is listening to your podcast. It means that chances are that they are faithful listeners and that they've been following you for a while.
Yeah.
So just get comfortable with them.
There's no such thing as bad publicity. And also I can't help but think of Howard Stern, how, the majority of his listeners of the ratings he was getting were from people who hated him. So the next one is discouragement.
Discouragement from family and friends. So you're going to hear things like, don't you think your hobby is getting a little expensive, honey?
Yes. Or are you crazy?
Are you crazy? Why are you wasting your time and money in that? Are you making any money out of your podcast?
And this is sad because a lot of times the people who love us the most, the people who are closest to us, are the ones who can be the most discouraging. And that a lot of times can come from a place of love. We've talked about this before too. And that can just be very hard not to have the support of people who are close to you. And a lot of times that's just because they don't really understand, and so what we say here is you just have to believe in yourself. And if possible, surround yourself with people who are enthusiastic and supportive.
We are all struggle when we're starting a project, when we're starting a business, when we're starting a podcast. And there's a lot of behind the scenes that they don't get to see. They get to see only like 20 or 10% of what you're doing, but they don't know what are your plans or where are you taking your whole project or your whole podcast. So this is why, those things over the holidays, when you get together with your family, you just, take it as it comes. Realize that you have your goals and that you created your show for a reason. And that you're going to stick to it and that you're going to make it successful. And then one day they're going to be talking about how successful you are and how good you're doing with your show.
And how cool it was that you persevered. And
that you persevered and that you didn't listen to them.
Yeah, and
because they're coming from a good place. They want to protect you from failure, but there's not such thing as failure.
also, I think our biggest recommendation for overcoming this discouragement from your family and your friends is networking. And that's to don't podcast in a vacuum. You know, get out there and build relationships with other podcasters, build relationships with professionals in your niche, attend podcasting events. There's just such a fun culture of podcasters out there.
Do you want to surround yourself with people who are taking podcasting seriously, who are using their podcast in a successful way, who are making money out of their podcast, who are using their podcast to network and be connected to people in their niche that are very influential? Those are the people that you want to be surrounded by. So when you get this kind of comments, then you know that you know your thing. And that you are around, and when you're around the people who are doing the same as you want to do, and they have found a way to be successful at it, is like, okay, I want to be there, and I'm going to be there. And, you know, many people won't understand, including my family. They won't understand what I'm working on right now, but they'll see.
They'll see, yeah.
You'll see, Tia Marta.
Tia Marta.
I will show you, Martica.
Tia Marta's so nice. She would be like, I love that you're speaking into the microphone. Oh, are you on the YouTubes?
Yes,
You know?
yes.
I love
Like
Tia Marta.
my family, yeah. Believe in yourself, believe in your goals. Your goals are what's going to keep you motivated and rooted, and it doesn't matter if a storm comes and hits you, then you know that you're going to be standing still and that you're going to be working hard towards growing your show.
Okay, so let's talk about getting bored. So you get into podcasting and you start on a topic or with a certain format, and after a while it can start to feel boring. Maybe it's just your co-host that's bored. Maybe it's you that's bored with your co-host. And this can sometimes be something even more than boredom. This can be some secret prejudices building up or resentments building up. Maybe you don't like the way your co-host hogs the microphone and constantly interrupts you.
Maybe you don't like his or her breath.
Yeah, or that you can't
Or that
stand
they
his
spit.
Yeah, or his giant carrota that looks like the head of a snowman.
Or that they go off script.
Especially that they do a bunch of, I don't know. Anyway, this is good though. This has been healthy for us. Paul McCartney singing in the background and your parents screaming. Then you know it's Christmas. You know what I mean? Simply having. Look at what you're doing to the children. Okay.
Shut up.
The main thing is to just be open-minded here and to reinvent yourself. If you're finding yourself getting bored, then talk about it. Don't let that boredom or that obligatory thing that you get into with a co-host or even with your podcast. I know a lot of people and podcasters that we've worked with, they have made it a goal not to give up, you know, and they're just going to keep podcasting every week because they said they would, whether it's boring or not. And, you know, if you lighten up and you don't get stubborn with that and you have an open mind and you get creative and let your creative juices flow, there's really no reason you ever need to get bored, no matter what topic you're on. You can still stay inside the music niche or the film niche or the fitness niche or the news or comedy, whatever style of podcast you have, and the world's your oyster, you know? So a lot of times there's something else going on besides being bored. Just kind of getting, I don't know about this thing anymore, that you can kind of, you know, invite a new co-host into the mix, start interviewing people or stop interviewing people or go scripted or go unscripted. And then a big thing to do here is to reach out to your listeners and ask them for their input.
That's very important. Yeah, before you make any major changes, make sure that you reach out to your community and ask them for ideas. They'll let you know.
They'll let you know what kind of ideas you could do, what they'd like to hear. So that's it for the first point, discouragement. And let's just move right along to not seeing results. And by not seeing results, what do we mean by that?
So what we mean is you're obsessively, constantly looking at the numbers and you don't see, you see the same 10, 20, 50 1,000 people listening to your show every week, and you seem to be stuck as far as your listeners. So for this, what we can tell you is to be patient and be consistent with your show. Your numbers and your analytics and all that. It's good to look at them to see your progress. However, don't allow them to get you discouraged about your show. We just get so caught up in what we do that we don't take time to stop and look at when we started. So just look back a few months ago, look back a year ago, where you were. Like how when you started, you only have 10, 20 people, and now you have all these people. You have 400 of 1,000 followers on your Instagram. You have people tuning in for your live videos. You have a number of episodes that are people, they're ready for people to listen to. You have put a lot of work into your show. And I know that sometimes it seems like it's just not enough, because as human beings, we're constantly comparing ourselves with other people who are doing better than us, or, those who are not doing as good as we are doing, as well as we're doing, because we want to feel better. But if we just look at our progress, if we just take those analytics just to remind ourselves, like, wow, it should always be, instead of, it should be like, wow, like, we have 100 people tuning in each week to listen to us. Like, how cool is that?
I like what you were saying there about the analytics, that it's like more of a guide to show you what your current listeners do like the most. So look at those analytics to see which episodes perform the best, so that you know what episodes to keep doing and things, right? And then the other thing, like if you're not getting the results you want, is to reevaluate your strategy. And so there's some questions that you can ask yourself here. Just say, who are you doing this for? What is the main goal you have for your podcast? Who is your ideal listener, or you could call it your avatar or your target audience? And are you speaking their language? Do you know where they're at? Are you engaging in conversations with them? Is there a problem that they have that you could help to solve? All of these questions will really help you to reach more people and help you to sort of start catering your content and changing the content of your podcast more to what your particular audience actually wants, and you'll start getting better results from doing that. And then the other one is
also another thing that you can do is to look at your marketing strategy. This is very important. Look at what are the social media platforms that you're using and how they're performing. Are you showing up consistently on these platforms? Are you providing value to your communities on those platforms, not just showing up every so often to say, new episode out, come and listen, once a week? That is just not enough. Are you making the platform happy? Which means that you are optimizing your accounts, that you're posting stuff that it's pertinent to the social media platform that you're using. Twitters are microblogs and funny tweets and interesting tweets. Instagram is all about picture, images, and looking good and showing up on Instagram stories and showing what you're up to. So just make sure that
you've done the research.
And that those that you're playing by the rules of those platforms.
Playing by the rules of the platform.
And that those are growing as well with your listenership.
And that you have an audience there as well. And you'll find that you start entertaining and having conversations and being part of sort of being a content creator or an entertainer beyond just being a podcaster.
Yeah.
And then your podcast starts to grow, which is wonderful.
And don't be afraid to try new things. And we're trying to get our podcasts to get into video. And we're talking about people who are not comfortable in front of the camera. Yeah. Who would say like, no to Instagram stories. No. Like they're showing up on Instagram stories and they're like, all of a sudden this account that I had no idea that existed, there's this person, with a little video inviting me to listen to his or her show. So I'm going to pay attention to that. So don't be afraid to change your strategy, to try new things. I mean, who's going to judge you for that?
Yeah.
Who's going to say anything? Just try it.
Yeah, and with the social media stuff, we have a ton of helpful information that we put together, not only episodes on our podcast, but also on YouTube. We have a whole playlist all about social media specific to podcasts, and there's a ton of useful information there because we could spend a whole episode just talking about that, and we have spent whole episodes talking about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, reevaluate your strategy and take a look at your audience, take a look at where they're at, who they are, and then also really think about what your own personal goals are. And let's see, before we move on to the last point, let's see if we have any other comments here. Nice sweater. I know that you're not talking about me. Casual Burger again said it's important to have goals that are not number driven and try not to compare yourself with others. Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Oh, hey, we got Eileen Smith just stopping by to say happy holidays.
Eileen!
Hey, Eileen!
We love you, Eileen!
We love you, Eileen. And we also have Objective Irony that stopped by. Have a noble goal, they say.
Yes.
Thanks, you guys.
Yes, that is so important.
That is very important.
Yeah, when you choose a goal that is not just attached to you personally, but it's attached to your community, it's attached to other humans, then it makes it so you don't give up because those people count on you. That is so important. A
Very
noble objective.
Yes, it's really important to do that. So I think we can move on to our last point for today's episode. And just a reminder, we post these episodes on Thursday, and this is going to be our last official episode before the new year.
We're going to miss you.
We're going to miss you guys
so much.
We might pop in with a surprise episode, but officially this is our last.
We'll come back if you buy us coffee. It would be so sad. It would like threaten people that we're going to give up.
Buy us a coffee?
and then we can come back because nobody
bought us coffee.
Bought us coffee.
We'd wait a little while and then we'd come back.
And then like whatever.
So the last point for how to avoid the podcasting blues is time and money and the return on your investment. Not just the return on your investment with the money that you've put into your podcast, but also with all of the time.
Yeah, so you start complaining like, oh, this is taking so much time. Oh, I'm really struggling. Oh, I can't come up with ideas. Oh, I need, I'd rather be doing this than recording. Why am I spending my days or my Friday night doing this? So, and then with time, just it's a change in a mindset. Just think about why. It's a very good practice to go back and think about why you started your show. And also to have a novel objective too, because if you're doing this for somebody besides yourself, then you're not going to be complaining about time because you're doing this for somebody else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, with that noble goal again, right?
So are you committed?
And
when you're committed, you make time for it. And you put that time aside to grow it, to nurture it, and to make it thrive.
Yeah, and then with this idea of commitment too is also this practice of visualizing your goals. It's crazy with the podcasters we work with, how many of them, like most of them, don't have a clear goal. They don't know why they're podcasting. They don't know who they're podcasting for. They don't know who their audience is. They can't really define that for you. And I like to think of the analogy of knowing where you're going, just you see a giant skyscraper or a location you can see off into the distance. And if you actually can see that, there's 100 different ways to get to that location if you can visualize it. You can take the fastest route possible. You can take the scenic route, whatever, right? So it's about visualizing specific results that you want to see happen with your podcast as well. And there's also nothing wrong with changing your strategy along the way, or changing your course along the way. Yes. That's what I have to say about that. So
that was very profound.
Yes. Yeah. So here's just with the time, just be quick to adapt and open to experiment with the same thing we were saying earlier. And then about money, what do you have to say about money, Veronica, and the costs of podcasting? Well, this is what I'm always, so every time we talk to a podcaster or if we have calls with clients or somebody who wants to take our services,
is like have a clear idea in mind. Like, how do you want to bring money to you using your podcast? Do you have a service to offer? Do you have a product to sell?
Yeah. And
Just
a lot
be
of
very
times-
creative this way, because, and just treat your podcast as a business.
Yeah.
Treat it as a business from the beginning. You need to spend a lot of time in the planning and the developing your idea and doing, market research.
Also, there's a lot of podcasters who monetize and make money from their podcast indirectly. They
Yes.
use their podcast to network, and then they use their podcast to drive people into their sales funnel for, like Veronica said, a product or a service that they're selling. So you might not initially have gotten into podcasting with the idea of having any kind of product to sell, but the more you network, you start becoming an expert in things.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that you can educate yourself and start promoting whatever it is that you want to promote or sell using your podcast, because you already have an audience.
Yeah, and so when it comes to money with podcasting, it's about, again, commitment, and then it's about just thinking about your podcast as a business and really start to shift and think about it like that. And, when people are first starting businesses, there's always a long period of time where you aren't going to make any money. You lose money for the first couple of years in a lot of businesses that you start. So, and then it's just, sometimes it can take money to make money too. So, I mean, you've already spent all this money on gear. You've spent money on live streaming software. You spend $10 a month on Canva Pro and all these other subscriptions and Headliner. But then, if you're ready to take risks and take your podcast to the next level because you have your content all dialed in, you've done these other steps that we've talked about where you kind of know where you're going, you know your goals, you know who your audience is, and you're ready to attract more people, then you can think about outsourcing. And outsourcing is incredible. I mean, just think about if you were able to afford $500, $1,000 a month for a social media person who's an expert on a social media platform, you would have so much traffic driving into your world, your enterprise, right? Your podcast. So it's really the same thing to not get too bummed out about the return on investment, and to also, I think, look at other rewards that you're getting that aren't off in the distance so much, that are more these immediate results and rewards that you're getting. And just know and believe in yourself and have faith in your creativity and your voice and what you have to offer people, and just stay with it, and just keep going and take yourself seriously, believe in yourself, and it's just one brick at a time, you know?
Yeah. Before you go, don't forget to get your free podcast Jumpstart Guide. It's a very comprehensive guide we put together, and it will take you from planning all the way to launching your podcast. You can find the guide at podsoundschool.com/jumpstart, and we'll also be leaving a link on this episode's description.
Yes, so make sure you grab that guide. And if you're not our friend on social media yet, what's going on? Come slide into our DMs, say hi at Pod Sound School on Instagram or Twitter. Also, come join our Facebook group, Podcasting for Bosses. That's podsoundschool.com/community. And until next time, guys.
Happy casting,
casting,
amigos!